is full of dreams, just to call you back to me. There's a long, long trail of winding into the land of my dreams, where the nightingales are singing and the white moon beams. There's a long, long night of waiting until my dreams all come true, till the day when I'll be going down that long, long trail with you.
Rejoice, O young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during days of young manhood, and follow the impulses of your heart and desires of your eyes, yet know that God will judge you in all you do.
Months have passed since the bloody devil slaughter of the storm battles had subsided, and yet another stalemate. The trenches stretched from the English Channel to Switzerland, some 500 miles long. The soldiers were shattered, but were slowly recuperating. More men, materials and equipment were urgently needed. New Zealand had introduced conscription in 1916. Now all young men had to go and fight. There weren't enough volunteers anymore. They lay on the hills of Gallipoli, in the sands of Palestine, or in the soil of France. And so throughout the land, even in little towns such as Amberley, the boys were being called up to fight for king and country.
Good game, Sam.
Yeah, it was.
Real crack, mate. I'll tell you what. Got to do that again. We'll have a couple,
mate.
please. Yeah. And take the bottle. It's on the house. You're a legend, mate. Ooh, well, it was, wasn't it, Sam? Jolly good game. Don't you reckon? You know, yours backs. They certainly showed those Glenmark boys how to run the ball. And a forged, man, they were all over them.
Sure was, Jim. Certainly was a hard game. You know, it's a shame our rugby training's on the same night as our army training. Still, I can go there after this. Strange having my mate as an officer, you know. Don't think I'll ever be able to call you sir. We've been mates for a long time now.
True. Don't know why they made me an officer. Gee, I'm much older than you. I got my call-up papers yesterday. You got yours yet?
Sure have. Oh, I can't wait to get into camp.
Yeah, me too, mate. We'll show those Huns what the Canterbury boys can do. I can't wait to see some of those little cute French girls. We'll be away soon. There's training in England and sling camp, and then it's to France. Crack at those Germans.
And for so many of the young boys, the great adventure was about to begin. Into camp, the bark of the NCOs, the continual marching, inoculations and sore arms, and then finally knowing that they would soon be on board ship for the voyage to England and sling camp. New Zealand, being such a young country, many still had close relatives in the mother country, and the chance to get leave to go and visit them was on everybody's wish list. Imagine wandering the streets of exotic foreign countries when the ship stopped for fuel and provisions, and being able to wander the streets of old Mother England, gazing at all the wonders, and perhaps even catching a glimpse of the King and Queen. Imagine. No more drudgery of boring 58-hour weeks. True, the army didn't pay much, and it was a 24/7 job, but it was new and exciting. The New Zealand Division, led by the respected General Russell, would welcome the new boys, fill the gaps left after the Somme, and losses through sickness and wounds.
I love my big brother Sam. He's so special. We go for lots of walks and go fishing on the lake. And I always watch him play footy. He scored a great try the other week, ran the full length of the field. I was so proud. He calls me his best ever little sis. And gosh, he looks handsome in his uniform. And he's got a gun. But I'm not allowed to touch that.
Mum and I don't want Sam to go. We already have our other son, Pete, over there. He was in Gallipoli and jolly lucky to survive. I think we've given enough.
I don't know what all the fuss is about. Pete's getting all the glory charging after all those Turks. I'm determined to get away. I won Dad over pretty easily, but Mum was quite hard to convince. Crikey, I'm 19 now.
Can I walk to the station with you, Sam?
Of course you can, sis, but only to the corner and then I'll wave at the next bend.
Good luck, son. Keep your head down and come home safely. Don't forget to write to your mum. She's going to miss you a lot.
Sam, this is going to be a great adventure for you. Take care, son.
They were summoned from the hillside, they were calling from the glen, and the country found them ready at the stirring call for men. Let no tear.
And the generals pondered. Luce, the Ain, Nivelle, Arras, and worst of all the Somme, all disasters. Hundreds of thousands of young men who would never smell the freshness of dawn again lay rotting in France and Belgium. In Russia, Germany's other war enemy, the Great Russian Revolution was occurring. Russian soldiers had laid down their arms and left the battlefield. Russia was no longer Britain's or France's main ally. America was finally at war on the Allied side. Soon, thousands and thousands of young, fit, fresh American boys would arrive. But at sea, the German U-boats were sinking everything. Britain was short of food. General Sir Douglas Haig, now leader in charge, looked again to Belgium. After all, the Somme in France hadn't worked.
I developed my plan. The Ypres Salient would be the answer. Lord George, the British Prime Minister, and I did not see eye to eye. I didn't trust him, and he didn't trust me. A breakout and capture of the ports of Zeebrugge and Ostend would remove the U-boat menace, and with the Americans coming, we needed to show who knew how to win this war. After all, we didn't want the Yanks getting all the credit. Okay, it's Flanders again.
We'd been at Sling Camp in England, training, marching, and more training. Finally, we set sail for France.
The New Zealanders, along with English, Canadian, Australian, and South African, and many other Allied soldiers were posted to Etaples. It became a place of hate and anger because of English NCOs and officers who had never been to the front were treating the soldiers like dirt. The discipline was unfair, unjust and cruel.
Etaples was awful. This is not what I joined up for. I saw my mate Bob Barry given 3 days number 1 field punishment just for being late back to camp. We were all pretty angry. But there was worse. Some smart NCO turned the showers off after only a few seconds. This was the last straw, and several soldiers mutinied. 4 Australians and 1 New Zealander, Jack Braithwaite, were tried by court-martial.
These men are found guilty and are sentenced to be shot.
The Aussie government wouldn't allow their men to be shot by the English, but, oh no, not New Zealand. Poor Jack wasn't so lucky. However, soon we were posted to the front. Life in the trenches was very hard and full of risks. Fat rats as big as cats were everywhere. They ran over us at night as we slept and chewed through our packs to get to our rations. After a week living in the mud and water in the trenches, suffering from the eternal scratching of lice, and often living on cold rations, we were taken back to reserve areas. Now, in all reality, these reserve areas were just an excuse for us to carry supplies up to the boys in the trenches. Dirty, risky work at night. The real blessing came at the 4th week when we got to go back to the rest areas where we could bathe, sleep and play sport. Heaps of the boys fed themselves full at the local estaminays on eggs and chips and drank lots of cheap French plonk. Many very pretty French girls were around, and many of my mates got into a spot of bother dilly-dallying around with them. Not me though, no, of course not.
Why should I wait for the Americans? I will plan for the battle to break out of the Yvelines and smash through the German lines into open country. The battle will feature a creeping barrage. The guns are everything. Smash the German warren trenches, and we'll use gas as well.
The plan was that after a huge bombardment for days and days, we would climb out of our trenches and attack, being shielded by bursting artillery fire just in front of us. We were to have our first crack at Messines, a high ridge that must be captured. The line was blown. Over 1 million pounds of explosive. It was huge. Many German soldiers just disappeared, blown to smithereens. It was even heard in London. It was a success. Soldiers, the bridge was taken and held. The creeping barrage works.
Easy. Next step, we'll take the town of Passchendaele. There's no rush. We're fully organised. Need more guns. Lots more, thousands of them. We'll blast the Hun to pieces.
The Germans had retreated behind their famous Hindenburg line. Front trenches were only lightly held, while stormtroopers were ready to counterattack any breaks in the line the British made. Concrete bunkers and machine gun nests lay waiting for the English Tommy. But worse, unknown to General Sir Douglas Haig, thousands of fresh German soldiers were arriving from Russia. Haig gave them the time they wanted by not attacking immediately after Messines, a decision that was to cost the New Zealanders dearly.
The plan was that now we would do it again. Oh, the guns! It went on for days and days. 4.2 million shells were fired at the Germans. The ground was always a swamp, wet and low-lying. But now millions of shell craters overlapped each other. It was like a moonscape. My God, I hope it doesn't rain.
But it did. The overlapping shell holes and broken dikes filled with water. Men in the trenches were cold, wet and exhausted. No one could move unless on boards of timber laid on the mud. One false step and a soldier, mule or horse simply slipped under the vile, stinking mud and were drowned. Life for a soldier became not simply an existence, but survival when rum ration helped.
But attack we must. No, it's vital that the big guns can come forward after the soldiers to keep up the creeping barrage.
We had our rum ration. We advanced. The gas warnings rang. The machine guns sang their deadly song. We fell in the thousands. On and on we came. More fell. Simply so loaded with equipment that many just fell into the stinking, vile mud to drown. Carnage.
And so another failure. The Battle of 30 ground to a halt. New Zealand suffered what is finally being recognised as their worst ever military disaster. On the 12th of October 1917 alone, New Zealand lost 45 officers and 800 men killed in a single day. Over 2,700 were wounded. By the time New Zealand troops were finally withdrawn in February 1918, over 5,000 had been killed and 13,000 had become casualties. But General Haig's plan swept on. It had become a war of simply killing more Germans. No less than 3 Victoria Crosses were awarded to New Zealand soldiers: Leslie Andrews, Samuel Frickleton, Henry Nicholas. The Victoria Cross, the Empire's greatest award for gallantry. Citations read in a similar manner to this one. In face of intense enemy action and facing heavy machine gun fire, this soldier rallied his men around him and moved forward, placing himself in extreme danger. Enemy machine guns, often protected by concrete bunkers, were silenced, their occupants killed or captured, and the position held against repeated attempts at recapture. Of the 3 names mentioned, only 2 survived the war.
Oh God, it's Sam. He's fallen. May God help us.
How could this be? Our darling son, our sweet, sweet, loving boys. Our only sons.
Noel,
Thank you for coming, Jim.
I had to come.
Come and take a seat.
Mary. Yes. I really am so awfully sorry about Sam. You know, I was beside him, but for some reason I was spared. But I wanted to come and tell you that your son, he died very quickly and he wasn't in any pain. It was also very, very sudden, and I saw to it that he was buried without any fuss and in the manner that you would have wanted. You know, we all loved him as a brother. He was so very, very brave.
But how was Lieutenant Jim to know that only 2 days before, Mum, Dad and Jessie had had another telegram telling them that their other son, Pete, had died of wounds in Palestine? We shall never know how many returned to live a life of silence, racked with memories of the horror and suffering, the pain of lingering wounds. Their names shall live forevermore.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place whilst in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard because the guns below. We are the dead short days ago, we lived, we loved, and felt sunsets glow, but now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you, with failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. If ye lose faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will
Remember them.